Yeah, and the vision, I mean, it's like, I think something I've recognized that's really challenging for us today in our culture is we don't have like that cultural story that we all buy in.
Mm,
Like
mm,
when Bushmen told stories around the fire, or some of these other native cultures I have been around a lot, they have a pedagogy of stories they tell
mm, mhm.
that has their values embedded in it, has their code of conduct, has how they care for the land, all in these stories. And those people hear those stories year after year after year, and it becomes the fiber of their being. Whereas we have all these disagreements on the stories and the things that we want. We don't
Yeah,
have a aligned vision. I think makes it really hard for
yeah,
us. So
yeah.
when I work with people, I try to just keep it on nature.
Mhm,
One of people I work with, she says like, let nature do the work.
mhm. Yeah,
So just kind of get people out there and let nature write people's minds.
yeah.
You know?
Creating the conditions,
Yeah. So
yeah, for connection and healing.
yeah. So
Hub Knott, thanks so much for joining the We Rise podcast. Really delighted to have you on today and just really excited to share more about who you are and the work that you do with folks. Welcome and tell us a little bit about yourself.
yeah. Thank you, Christine. Well, I grew up in Baltimore and quickly realized I didn't want to be here forever. I
Mm,
like the woods, and I always tended towards the woods as a kid. And when I graduated high school, I went west and
mm,
explored the mountains of the west and fell in love with the woods. And yeah, and it just became part of my life, became my sanctuary, and I spent a lot of alone time up in the mountains in Oregon.
mhm.
Partly because I just couldn't get friends to go with me. With that, but I remember sitting on a peak called Diamond Peak, which is like above
Mm,
peak with snow. It's like a perfect dome on top, and it was above tree line. I remember sitting up
mm,
there in all of the beauty, just old growth forest going on,
mm,
Three Sisters peaks, and being up there, I've got to share this with other people. And then that kind of stayed in the back of my head. And eventually I was working with some mentors, been fortunate to have some amazing mentors when
mhm,
after 18 that stepped into my life that saw more in me than I saw in myself. And they kind of carried me along. And one's like, this guy, John Young, is like, you're going to teach someday. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Cause I did not like getting up in front of people. I didn't have
mm,
confidence for it at the time.
mm.
So he kept saying that. And then somehow I remember sitting out there in the woods or in the desert of Oregon with a bunch of teenagers. I'm like, darn, I'm here.
Here you are.
And then that grew into moving back east because I really want to do something for the Chesapeake Bay watershed, be a
Yeah,
part of the place that I grew up on, the water and the
yeah.
souls that I love. And so I came back east and then co-founded Living Earth School. And it partly just on a whim, people kept asking us to do more programs. So we started as a for-profit because that was the easiest model I knew
Mhm.
at the time.
Yep.
Eventually, we became a nonprofit because I was really wanted to be able to allow people to be in our outdoor programs that couldn't afford it as well. So that made the shift to the nonprofit. But we've been doing it for 23 years now.
Wow.
A team of about 10 full-time staff, and then in the summer it swells a lot more. But it's just been great to work with kids from age 5 all the way up to 80 years old, sometimes old.
Wow.
And so we work with all ages, and it's just a lot of fun to help people come into relationship with nature.
Yeah. Beautiful. Helping people come into relationship with nature.
Yeah, and
That's just
themselves in them. One of my native elders always said, like, when you get right with nature, you'll get right with yourself.
mhm.
Then he's like, then you'll get right with the creator.
Yeah.
So I always love that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Absolutely. Beautiful. How about when I go back to something you said a moment ago? You talked about that Native American elder that you just referred to. When you get into relationship with nature, you get into right relationship with yourself, I think was the gist of what you said. Can you talk a little bit about what it was like when you went west and you talked about that experience of being at the peak in the mountains and in the woods? What was it? Was it an inner experience that you felt that connection? Can you tell us a little bit more about what that experience and relationship with nature was like when you first kind of
right.
recognized the feeling?
Well, when I first started exploring the woods out there, I covered a lot of land because I thought getting out in nature meant, in a way, bagging a lot of peaks, crushing the miles on the trails.
Right, right,
And then
right.
I took a plant class at the community college in Eugene, and I started learning the plants. And then whenever I walked, I started seeing plants that were familiar. And I eventually learned how
Yeah,
to use those plants for medicine and to make crafts and make fire. And so I came into a relationship with these things. And
yeah,
when I
totally.
was sitting on that peak that day, I was watching the sunset over the coastal range
Mm,
of Oregon. And then something somehow I just turned back and looked, and at the same time, the full moon was rising
Mm,
in the east over the Three Sisters peaks. And I was like in total blown away awe of just like,
yeah,
I think awe is what wakes people up a lot
yeah,
when you have those moments. So I saw those two and I'm like, I had no idea that it happened when
mm,
when the full moon rises, the sun is setting
yeah.
at the same time. And that was like a beautiful moment. I'm like, I got to share this with people. This is
Mm,
cool. So it was kind of an inner feeling, but it was spawned by what I was witnessing in life.
yeah,
So,
beautiful.
yeah,
So I'm going to come back to the Living Earth School in a little bit and about your work and community, but I want to continue this thread a little bit about your own inner work and your inner life and inner resilience. I want to tease out a little bit more about what's helped you grow your own inner strength
right. Yeah,
or held it back over time, but also that recognition of a relationship that's something beyond yourself. Sometimes people that resonates for people and sometimes doesn't, but I think that it's foundational in terms of having a sense of grounding for
yeah, yeah,
how you relate to yourself in the
right,
world. Can you talk a little
right.
bit more about
Yeah.
that?
I mean, yeah, there's a lot of little elements there. One, when you said with I think in relation to other beings, maybe I don't know if you didn't say it that way, but that's what came to my mind was like
Yeah.
one time just walking down a trail and realizing watching all these birds plow away from me. Like, wow, I did that. My
Mm-hmm.
presence on the earth
Yeah.
has an impact.
Mm-hmm.
So and then I started learning about moving quietly and working with my presence. And that was really crucial. And then I had another native elder named Ingwe. He was from Africa, grew up with the
Mm-hmm.
Akamba people. Ingwe meant leopard. And it was in Kenya. And he said, he would always tell me stories and ask me things. He's like, if we're going to keep working together, I need to know your code of conduct that we're in alone.
Mm-hmm.
So he said, figure out what your values are, figure out how you conduct yourself because life's going to challenge you and if you know your values, you're way more resilient in those moments. When you don't, you just kind of bat it around. So I did that. I wrote it out. It was many pages long.
Mm-hmm.
Like, wow, this is great, but can you get it down to a paragraph each?
Interesting.
And then I got down to a paragraph each. And then he says, "Oh, that's great. Still too long. Make it a sentence. So what are your values? How are you going to conduct yourself?" And I do the
Mm-hmm.
same thing with my staff. Like
Mm-hmm.
we have to have a code of conduct, how we're going to, when the winds blow in life, it steadies us. It gives us something to fall back on. Like, what are our values? And who
Yeah.
am I? What do I know? I saw a book by Oprah Winfrey once, never even opened it, but it said, what do I know for sure? And I
Mm.
use that as a journal prompt. Like if somebody was to you know, push comes to shove, what do you
Yeah.
know that nobody could take away from you,
Yeah.
no matter what they said and I've wrote a lot about like, what do I know from my life experience that's true? Not like what have I read and believe, but
Mm-hmm.
what do I actually know from life,
Feeling your bones.
feel it in my bones. So yeah. So those are
So,
two things I think. So
so I want to dig into that a little bit more. Those things, you brought them up. I would say, in my own life recently, as many people are right now, a lot of the projects that I have working around environmental consulting, the primary projects I have are on funding freeze at the moment. And at the same time, the theme that I've been working with this year, before that even happened, is relaxing into trust. And so here I've had this really fascinating opportunity
yeah,
to practice
yeah,
relaxing into trust.
yeah,
And in my sitting practice this morning, I was reflecting on how relaxing into trust really is not this kind of grand sweeping gesture of I'm going to relax into trust and whatever that looks like for people,
yeah,
whether that's nature or spirit or the universe or a higher power. It is that, but it's the everyday moments.
yeah,
It's relaxing into trust in this moment, in conversation with you right now, or people listening,
yeah,
relaxing into trust. And that's a real core foundational feeling that I can come back to, and that I can even trust that feeling of, can I trust this moment? Yeah,
yeah,
I can trust this moment. I can trust the sense of steadiness within myself.
yeah,
I could trust myself in alignment with nature,
yeah,
spirit. Breaking it down to something so simple was like, oh yeah, I can
yeah,
trust, relax into trust in this moment. And it reminds me, Hub, of what you were just talking about, that kind of things I know to be true. I
yeah,
can trust that to be true. So tell us a little bit more about this code of conduct for yourself.
yeah.
What
Well
is it?
well, when you're bringing up the trusting, that made me think, like, because have a sitting practice, but I try to when the weather's reasonable, I try to sit outside and I tune into all my senses and what's going
Mhm.
on in nature, and it's like,
Yeah.
I'm seeing that the birds are doing the bird thing. The different species are behaving the way they've always behaved, as far
Yeah.
as we know. the red maples are blooming right now. And it's just
Thank
like nature's
goodness.
on cycle. I might be slightly off cycle today.
Right.
And I've dealt with a lot of challenges in my life. And there's like a Mark Twain quote. I can't remember. Like I've had a lot of worries in my life, most of which never came true.
Mhm.
And I think like
Mhm.
I have so many worries and so many like lack of trust. But when it comes down to it, I live a pretty healthy life. I've got great people around me and made it through a lot of challenges. And that code of conduct, some of that, one of them is just like knowing one of my things is like everyone wishes to be appreciated. And I extend that to
Mhm.
species too.
Mhm.
And when I work with kids, it's like you see a kid taking a stick and hitting a tree. I'm just like, like, or a bush, I'm like, how would you like it if somebody came up and ripped your hair out? It's just like, it wouldn't feel very good. It's like,
Mm.
this plant doesn't need to just be whacked by you.
Mm. Mhm.
So I think of us like knowing that if I operate from everyone wishes to be appreciated in my best moments,
Mhm.
I forget,
Mhm. Right, sure.
but that my relationships from there, because I always look at the trunk as like or the values code of conduct is like the trunk of a tree. It's like
Mhm.
my strength.
Mhm.
What comes out of that, the branches of my life, so to speak, are the things that happen. But if I'm doing it with the right values in place, my relationships and my product, so to speak, you could say,
Yeah.
is usually pretty good and filtered through all that. So if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
It totally makes sense. So that core and foundation. Tell us a little bit more about what your process looks like when if you notice, and I don't know if this language will resonate with you or not, but if that trunk feels if you feel disconnected or on days that you're struggling, what helps you move
Yeah.
forward? What helps you
Um,
reconnect?
I mean, I sit every morning and I don't love those mornings when I don't have time.
Yeah.
Something jumps in the way. So I sit every morning and just kind of tune in and just kind of not just to myself, but the surroundings. Cause
Mhm.
I'm, in a way, if it's true that we're all connected,
Mhm.
that I want to feel connected to it all. So that really helps. I think the confidence of like weathering a lot of storms in life
Mhm.
is also like just trusting like I can do this. It's going to be hard. It might be uncomfortable right now, but it's interesting because I remember when I was with the Bushmen people in Botswana once, and it was a cold night, like got that frosty, which is uncommon. They don't have blankets in their grass huts where they were living,
Mm.
and we came out in the morning and met them. It was cold, and they're like, "Were you guys cold last night?" And they're like, "Yeah, we were cold." And I was just like, "Did that bother you?" And they're like, "Why would it bother us? It's just a feeling. It's cold."
Mm.
And some days we're hot, sometimes we're cold. It's just a feeling. Whereas we get all worked up, like, "Oh, I'm
Right.
cold, I'm miserable." And it takes over our being almost like we got possessed by a thought, And so I try to remember things like that, like, how can I just be equanimous, I guess is the right word, maybe,
Mhm.
and not react. And I try
Yeah.
to watch my reaction. And that helps with all those little moments that you speak of.
Yeah.
So
So much.
I haven't embodied that thing. I still use blankets.
You still use blankets. Blankets are still in my practice.
Yeah, yeah. I love blankets. So
Comfort
yeah,
is a blessing
yeah,
in a lot of ways.
yeah,
You talked about the confidence of weathering storms. You have a lived experience of weathering difficulty. You didn't use the term enduring short-term discomfort, but you know it will pass.
yeah.
And then you also talked about connection with yourself and surrounding. And earlier, Hub, you talked about just a sense of connection with nature. Can you talk a little bit about what it well, and for listeners too, or for folks who might be watching, Hub and I have taught ecological design before, permaculture design years and years ago.
Mhm.
And we used to start those classes with kind of the problem statement, if you will, and
Yeah.
separation from nature is often what would come up. And I'm just curious if you could speak from your own experience, Hub, but also what you've seen about that connection to nature and relationship to nature. What helps keep you in relationship to nature in a felt sense? And then what have you experienced with others
Right.
helps keep them in connection with nature? Or if they're feeling separated in a gentle way,
Yeah.
what helps others reconnect with nature?
Mm. One, it's a long game.
Mm-hmm.
I look at it as like tending a fire. A fire needs constant tending, get it to be steady. If you ignore the fire, it eventually goes out. If you throw too much at it, it gets out of control. So it takes diligence. And I think that's one thing try to work with staff and other people is like, slow down. This is like
Mm-hmm.
a year process to build these
Yeah.
relationships. So I think to me, it's kind of like that book, Bird by Bird, that, is it Anne Lamott?
Mm-hmm.
Just about like it's just one thing at a time, one
Yeah.
little relationship at a time,
Yeah.
getting someone to work with making fire by carving sticks, and then they get to know the wood a little more, and I give them a different wood, and they're like, "Oh, this axe different," and just
Mm.
building that where they just come to see
Mm.
those
Yeah.
little differences. But it's also about, like, our body, how we move, using all of our senses, being curious. I think it's like that. I remember watching even the Bushman elder, just like this 80-year-old man. We're assuming 80. He doesn't know his age.
Mm,
We don't do.
mhm,
My kids got
mhm.
or they don't. They heard they didn't do birthdays. Like that's so sad. But they don't have a need for age
Right.
in the Kalahari. But
Yeah.
they just would like look at every track as if it was the first time seeing it.
Hmm,
And they knew a lot about it, but they just like they were so curious. So I think helping people come to that and
mm,
they might come up and be like, "Oh, I know that's a tiger swallowtail." Yeah, but if like if you, what kind of have you noticed the antenna? Can you close your eyes and picture it? And they're like, "No." I'm like, sneak up on it and see if you can look at its antenna and come back and describe it to me.
mm,
Like getting them to kind of go deeper and go
mhm,
or like there's never you can never know too much about a robin, a common bird that we a lot of us.
mhm,
And then there's all these dark spots on a robin and all these different behaviors. So I think it's like a slow process of bringing your senses, bringing your body into it, bringing your awareness. How do we utilize this? What is this plant like?
mm,
Get bothered when I would walk up too close, but I can get closer. I get closer to a robin than I can to another bird that might
mhm.
more. So it's just learning these little dynamics and just
Yeah.
getting into it and making it. I mean, somewhat feels like a game for kids at first.
Mhm.
And they realize like, wow, I actually scared the heck out of that bird.
Right.
I don't feel
They
like there's like an empathy that comes in when
Yeah.
relationships. And when
Yeah.
you have those without knowing something, you don't have much empathy.
Mhm.
I think
Yeah.
empathy is what we've lost a lot of in our culture
Mm.
right now with the air.
Mhm.
Easy to, I guess, where our homeschool site is right now in town, they're bulldozing the forest
Mm.
one of the parts of the forest. And for the kids,
Mhm.
it's dramatic. They're like,
Mm.
a sit spot. And we
Mhm.
went and looked at the forest that was being
Mm.
right on the edge was an upside down turtle
Mm.
that died.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
these kids had relationship with this place.
Yeah.
They knew the creeks. They know the birds that lived in there. They recognize the deer,
Mhm.
all the things that the squirrels. And like, where'd the squirrels go?
Yeah.
All that. And the person on the bulldozer had never spent time in there.
Mhm.
And it was easy to wreck it in a way. I
Mhm.
don't know if it was easy. I don't want to put
Yeah.
judgment on that
Yeah.
person, but it's really hard to do that when you care for something.
Yeah.
I think that's part of what we try to get kids to is not to like not have any impact on Earth because we're going to have an impact, but like some of the native villages, like that book called Desert Smells Like Rain from Gary.
Mm.
And it was just like villages had more wildlife around it than the wildlands because of the
Mhm. Mhm. The relationship and reciprocity. And how do you tend the word lamentation has really been with me a lot recently. A lament about loss of species, about what's happening. When you were talking about the bulldozing that's happening in Charlottesville, how do you support kids in feeling those feelings, but
yeah.
not getting lost in despair? And there's a place for despair, but if you stay stuck in despair, it doesn't help you put one foot in front of the other.
Well,
How do you help support kids in that?
that's a good question. We call it the wall of grief.
Hmm.
That when you wake up to nature and realize that it's this rich, beautiful, living force around us that supports us, and then you realize how we're wrecking it, there's like a bit of grief that comes out of up,
Yeah.
and people will stay stuck, and that's when it gets destructive. But you got to
Yeah.
help them move through it. But it takes time. So for like the with the land, I know the staff are planning to do like a little kind of like ceremony for it in a way.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
a non-denominational type ceremony,
Hmm.
but a way
Yep.
that the kids can voice their feelings,
Yep.
giving the kids space or giving anybody space to listen. That's
Hmm.
something hard. Like I call people
Hmm.
time that I know just had something traumatic happen and give them a chance to talk because sometimes they're like,
Mhm,
"Man, it's called me
mhm,
talk," and I think so.
mhm.
Number one is people just need to be able to express what's coming up for them.
Yeah,
That's super crucial, and I think somehow nature teaches that the sun rises again,
yeah.
you know, and you can watch how nature heals things and they will
Mhm,
witness that the land heals but there is a loss, like that forest is going to become a bunch of homes and it's really hard to make sense of it. I don't try to get in the kind of let the kids have their or people have their experience in it because I
mhm.
like put my whole philosophy in their head. They're
Yeah,
gonna feel what they're going to feel, but I
mhm.
need to give them a place to express,
Yeah,
you know?
that's so key.
Yeah.
That especially creating the space, and I find this a lot in the community change making work that I do. People just need a place to come together.
Yeah.
And they need a space to come together that they can be brave in. One of my mentors, Frank Dukes, doesn't say, he says, I can't create a safe space for somebody else because I can't guarantee what safety is going to be for somebody else. But
No.
what we can do is create a sense where people can show up and be brave
Yeah.
and show up as their best selves or as some version of themselves that they can see. And then you talked about the power of listening, holding that space for other people, And that can create conditions for healing.
Yeah.
And then you also alluded to a rite of passage, if you will, or a ceremony or an acknowledgement of what's been lost. And that
Yeah.
can create space for what will come. It's
Yeah.
really beautiful.
Yeah. I think then people make mistakes in life too.
Sure.
It's
Sure.
like
We
we
all
all make
do. We all
mistakes.
do.
I think like one thing why people really the adults that come to our programs and the kids come back year after year after year is because they feel seen. They feel like it's a healthy container for them.
Hmm.
And it's like, and even like staff, like we all make mistakes. I make mistakes at work,
Hmm.
or say something I wish I didn't say, or do some, not do something or do something, and they do too. And I think how we handle that too, not
Hmm.
berate anybody, not
Hmm.
shame them, because we have so much of that going on in our world.
Hmm.
Feel bad or they're afraid to say something like I messed up. I love it
Yeah.
when my staff can say, "Hey, by the way, I messed up on this parent relationship thing."
Hmm.
They can just own it because they know we're gonna not. They're not. We're not going to help them feel bad about it. We're gonna like give them a chance, like to learn from it and move on.
Yeah.
I think that's lacking a lot in this world. I mean, it's a complex, moving thing, but it's beautiful in a way.
It is, and it's comes back to relationship a lot. One of my favorite things when we were trying to figure out how to parent kids, and continually we're always learning. It's a process, but learning about attachment theory,
Yeah,
and that we're going to mess up. My husband Reed and I are going to mess up as parents, as all parents do. But that the bridge or the repair
yeah,
is as important as that initial connection. So
right,
if we mess up, and we're human, we're going to continually mess up, that the repair that we make is as connecting and healing as the original experience. And I wonder how that extends to our relationship with nature
right.
as well.
Yeah. Well, I think when you mention that too, it's like another beautiful side benefit of that is your kids will likely, from having a good experience around that, about repair
Mhm.
and witnessing it, that they'll carry that into their next relationships in
Mhm.
life as they grow up to be adults. And that's
Mhm.
beautiful in a way.
But we don't talk about we do talk about as a society more the beauty of failure, but when we recognize failure or things composting or things breaking down as just a natural part of life,
Yeah.
things die.
Yeah.
Things die
Yeah.
and new things are born. And I don't think we recognize the natural cycle. So I love how that you brought in how does nature heal?
Yeah.
As a pattern for us to look at. Because when I look out around me in these Virginia woods, there are trees that have cracked and are falling down everywhere. And in the intensity of storms that we're experiencing now, greater trees are falling down, more trees are falling down, new species are coming up, and it's part of the process of regeneration.
Yeah.
But looking at that pattern is interesting for we're always becoming new people as well. And our relationships ideally are also becoming different and new. And
Yeah.
at least in my own life, I don't recognize the freshness that brings and the beauty that newness brings.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we don't shy away from talking about death in our programs, and we sometimes will process dead animals.
Mhm.
That is often a rite for anybody I've ever done that with, because we're so disconnected from it. It's like a rite of passage in its own
Mhm.
little weird way that they like if we skin a squirrel, like in my adult program, like they all of a sudden their relationship with squirrel from there on out, like the emails we get is like something about squirrel, this, that.
Right.
And all of a sudden, like
They're
blown
tuned
away by
into.
squirrels when most people would just ignore them and
Yeah.
look at the muscle in that thing. Look at how it claws. I remember feeling its claws and just, yeah. And then tanning the hide and just realizing like every part of this is usable. And then we might put the dead parts that we don't use out in the woods with a camera on it. And then you get to see what comes up and eats it. And it's like, it helps make sense that like death is just part of the process.
Yeah.
You know,
Very much so.
once you recognize that, you can exhale a little easier.
Yeah. And know that something else, the sun will rise
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
And thankfully that I just this spring particularly, I love seeing the plants that are reemerging without me doing anything. The red maples are blooming.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal to see.
Yeah. It's
So
amazing.
I want to broaden our conversation out a little bit, Hub. You talked about your work with the Living Earth School. Tell us a little bit more about what the Living Earth School is, what you do, and what you hope to do.
Yeah. We, it's evolved, but we do like 4 days a week of homeschool programs from age 7 all the way up to like 18. And then we do weekend programs. We do adult programs. I have a 9-month like adult nature connection program. It's one weekend a month and it goes through a whole different thing. And we do survival skills. We do teach about plants. We teach about animal tracking and different natural movement pieces. And crafting is very popular with older folks. We make fires a lot. like what are the hazards out there? So it's really just trying to go through like what would, if you were to live off this land purely, what would you need to know
Mhm.
in this area of Virginia? What trees are
Mhm.
really crucial to know?
Mhm.
There's like 64 woody species on my property. Not
Mhm.
all of them are that common, but what
Mhm.
are the common ones that they need to really know? Because
Yeah.
you can't know everything.
Yeah.
So and then we have summer camps, which is probably our busiest season. But and there's day camps and overnight camps, and they go through have a whole everything's kind of set up so it goes through tiers. Like here's an intro to Earth connection, nature connection, and then it
Mhm.
expands a little more and eventually gets into like community. Like, all right,
Mhm.
so now it was you out trying to make a fire by yourself by rubbing sticks together. Now
Mm.
as a team,
It's interesting.
you have to do it. You know,
Mhm.
how do you work as a team? How do you
Yeah.
make up your own camp as a team and what's it mean to work together with other people and so that's a beautiful thing and sometimes
Mhm.
we'll do expeditions like rivers and we use the river as a metaphor. How do you
Mm.
deal with when you go down a river, you come into a rapid, a lot of people just plow into it and pray that they make it through the other end,
Right.
but really good
That would be
paddlers,
me.
yeah, really good paddlers have amazing skill and it almost looks like they barely did anything. It looks so easy.
Mm.
And I'm like,
Mhm.
how's this could be like anything you want to learn, like has this thing to it. Like when you first start gardening, you're like digging hard at the earth and it's kind of painful.
Mhm.
You get it down to where there's a finesse to it. So I'm like, what's it take to do that? You know,
Mhm.
how do you deal with the rapids in your life? Do you just plow
Yeah.
through 'em or do you actually come at it with some skill? You
Mhm.
know, and what does that look like? And we'll
Mhm.
use things that we learn together. They call the canoe the divorce boat because it just creates people to fight, you know, not that that happens in
Right. Yeah.
a
Yeah.
it's like the person
The front and back.
like, "I said steer, do this,"
Right.
you know, it's
Right.
like it doesn't
Yeah.
happen, and it's a great chance for conflict resolution.
Conflict resolution.
Um, my hope ultimately is we're working on a college credit program
Oh,
that
neat.
like gap year students or like people
Cool.
after high school that don't want to do the college thing maybe and teach them about nature connection. We're hoping to bring in some carpentry elements because I do think just even knowing how to use basic tools is pretty
Mhm.
empowering because
Mhm.
don't really know how to do much with tools these days.
Yeah.
And then also about mentoring because I'm really
Mhm.
it's different than teaching. It's about mentoring. Like I think the root of it is like pulling the light out of another individual. Teaching
Beautiful.
feels like more like pounding in information, you know? So I think of, and that's a crude way to say that, but, you know,
Mhm.
it's just like, what is this kid or this adult do they seem to get jazzed? Like every time we talk about plants, I get jazzed. When I talk about birds,
Mhm.
it stays over.
Mhm.
And then how do I actually eventually connect birds to the plants? Because they are very
Mhm. Mhm.
you know, and just so I think mentoring and how do we mentor? What makes an effective mentoring? You know, how do you get rid of your own agenda and really mentor
Mhm.
individual on
Mhm.
it's a different
Mhm.
type of listening. Doing a gap year program of that is great. We do have started doing some elder circles because I really feel
Mm.
like in the ecology of life, nature doesn't forget anything. So
Mhm.
there's old beings, there's new beings, there's all these different things in nature. And I feel like our culture's done an amazing job at forgetting the elders,
Yeah.
you know, unfortunately. And I feel like if we're going to have a healthy human family, you know, we need to bring the elders back into their place of power and their place of influence.
Mhm.
That's an
Mhm.
area I'm
Mhm.
working with the same group of elders or adults for a while, and we're trying to figure out what does it mean to be an elder in this world and
Mhm.
help them not feel like I'm just bored at my house, which is what it
Yeah.
how do we bring them back in to where they can share their wisdom? Because we're losing a lot of great wisdom
Mhm.
separation we have created.
Yeah. Well said.
So yeah, there's a bunch. I have more ideas than we can ever do. Rites of passage is something's really big. I don't tend to talk about publicly as much on our website, but we do it, and
Mhm.
more of it because that's a burning need for not just
Mhm.
adults.
Mhm.
Adults are all the time feeling like they're just drifting into their adulthood with no real clear marker that I'm gonna
Mhm.
now. And you see a lot of adolescent 40-year-olds, you know? And
Yes.
yeah,
Yes, I know.
yeah. And I think having that marker where it's just like, yeah, you can still goof around, have fun,
Yeah.
but
Totally.
it's also like you're a dad. Be a
Yeah.
dad.
Yeah.
Be with your kids. And it's like they just a lot of people feel like I just don't feel like I've arrived yet. And it's like I think right
Mhm.
are an arrival moment for people.
Mhm.
And so that's something that's brewing in the back of my head of how do we do this really well? What would
Yeah.
what would be really helpful for people today?
Mhm.
So
Beautiful.
yeah. Cool.
So there are lots of different ways that you're working with people in different ages, and I love that you're bringing in elders as well as younger folks. If you were to step back a little bit, Hub, from the way that you're engaged in the day to day at the Living Arts School, what are some of the things that you're noticing, kind of bigger patterns around community, about what is helping people to find relationship with
Yeah.
themselves and nature or to feel disconnected? What are some of the patterns that you're noticing at more of the community scale?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I've been blown away by the community lately. Maybe I just live in
Mm.
a special spot, but I just see
We
there's
do?
yeah, but there's so many like great. Not that if you're hearing this from an out of town, maybe it's not that great. But no, I'm just kidding. But I see a lot of incredible people wanting to bring their gifts and talents to the table.
Mm.
Some people struggle with how to do that well, but yeah, I think that's something I'm noticing a lot. I think people are valuing nature more, and I see a lot more people are taking walks. And then I think one of the beautiful benefits of social media
Mhm.
lately is people realize like I have a lot of superficial relationships on social media, and they're really valuing like who are my real friends that show up
Yeah.
for me when I need it.
Yeah.
So I mean, I was a little tongue in cheek about social media, but people, you just realize how shallow it
Yeah.
is. And I think people I notice like I'm in 2 different men's groups because
Mhm.
they really like to get together and talk. I think we need to talk in small groups, and I think group size, I always loved there was like a something I saw once heard one time that like you can only have, um, enough really close friends that can fit around a fire.
Mm. Mhm.
And when you get to like 100 people, nobody can really stay warm around that fire.
Mm.
You know 100 people, but you don't know anyone that well. But
Mhm.
when it's a tight, intimate circle around a small
Mhm.
people, you can know them well. And I think people are really wanting that more and
Mhm.
trying to, I think sometimes why some adults come to our program is they're trying to find their people.
Mhm.
And I feel like there's a deep yearning for that today. And I
Yeah.
think as a community, especially for those of us with the talents or experiences on how to do that, need to step up and help make containers for people
Mhm.
and help create spaces because not everyone has that in their
Mhm.
time. They're overwhelmed,
Yeah.
you know,
Mm.
a lot, or people just overwhelmed by life. But I think I'm noticing people really wanting that more and more
Yeah.
times outside and more meaningful things. So that's exciting to me. And I always look at like, how do we help with that? So,
Yeah. In your experience with folks, and maybe this is more adults or elders, when people are feeling quite alone
mhm.
or lonely, what helps them feel more connected and to belong? Because I think that that's a real. I love the work of the Belong Institute and Daybreaker, which are these. This is a little bit of a different track, but
Yeah,
in the last year or two, I found these sober morning dance parties that happen around the globe and around the country. 6 to 9 yoga followed by dancing. I've gone to New York to a roller skating rink to do this, and Charlotte and DC a couple times. And one of the whole mission, and it's been featured on Oprah and, like it's just wild, but ending loneliness is part of the mission. And so to get dressed up and to go dance with people I don't know for sunrise in a couple
yeah,
cities has been one of the best experiences of my life. I
yeah,
love it.
yeah,
But I love that one of the explicit purposes and their sister NGO, non-governmental organization is the Belong Institute, is, to create spaces of belonging.
yeah,
But they talk about the epidemic of loneliness. And can you talk a little bit about what you're seeing with people? How do people find connection in meaningful ways?
right. Well, it's funny because I always loved the quote. I captured it. For some reason in early college, I read a lot of books on Mother Teresa.
Mhm.
Not a typical college read, but whatever. I'm not a typical guy, I guess.
Mhm.
But she said that loneliness is the worst disease in the world.
Mhm.
And I can see that,
Mhm.
um, and I see a lot of people pained by it. And I think, I mean, that's one of the we're working on this new property for our school that can have like a permanent place because I think people all the time ask, can we haven't had a great place to gather
Mhm.
regularly. So
Mhm.
that's been a pain point because a lot of like even on Christmas breaks, all these students come together. They have their own whatever Discord. It's called Discord, I think. They have all
Mhm.
these
Mhm.
living earth.
Mhm.
That's where they
Yeah.
feel like they belong. They feel like they have
Yeah.
people that understand each other. So, yeah, so I think more of that. I think if when we remember our humanness and think about our friends and you realize, I mean, I talked about earlier, but like reaching out to people is
Yeah.
crucial. I think it's like,
Totally.
it's really hard to solve loneliness by yourself. It takes a community. I always
Mhm.
like quote this, it's like, it's kind of cliche at this point, but it takes a community to raise a child.
Mhm.
Just think like we need to get into our heart of compassion, get out of our own stuff a little bit and realize other people need us as well. And I
Yeah.
think reaching out to people in times of pain or there's all types of things that go on that you just got to put yourself in other people's shoes and be like, oh, that might be hard. I never thought about that being a hard thing for so and so.
Mhm.
Reach out to them. And I've had that more times than not. People years later thank me for it. And I'm
Mhm.
doing it for a pat on the back. I'm more just doing it because like that person's a pain. They need somebody to listen.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
How you show up for people consistently in times of need. And it can be a simple call or text.
I mean, I notice it at camp sometimes. Like, I think why these kids value us at times is like because we're the first adults that really have shown up for them outside their
Mm.
and parents
Mhm.
in the Bushman world. They're like, we don't teach our kids.
Mm. Mhm.
It's the aunties and uncles and the grandparents,
Mhm.
the other
Mhm.
kids. They're like,
Mhm.
It's impossible for me as a parent to teach my kid."
Mhm.
They're like, "It just doesn't work." And most
Mhm.
parents, you try to teach your kids certain things, it's frustrating at times.
Yeah.
And somebody else explains it and they figure it out in 4 seconds. You're like,
Right. Okay. That's fine.
my job as a parent is just to give my kid love and let them know they have a safe home.
Mhm.
It's only other people in the community to take care of that. So I
Mm. Mhm.
think it's just reaching out and, yeah, helping other people, inspiring them, getting involved with things with them.
Yeah. Yeah, very much so.
So, yeah.
Beautiful. So you've talked about your mentors, you've talked about teachers you've had. I'd love to hear what are some key lessons learned that you want to share with others who are trying to create change in their
Right.
communities?
We've talked about relationship a lot, but that's one of those things I heard a long time ago. And I feel like there's a lot of times in my adult life, I've done a lot of things in my life, and a lot of it feels like it's been a sheer force of my own willpower, where
Mm.
it's like,
Mhm.
in a way, I could feel like myself just like grinding through, making things happen out of my own
Mhm.
willpower and feeling very alone in that,
Mhm.
and sacrificing a lot in that. And I think when I have leaned on my team, because I work with some amazing people, and it's like they have their own talents. A lot of them are better at most things than I am.
Mhm.
And I sometimes feign ineptness around the computer stuff, so I don't get asked to do things. But no,
Note note to team.
but there's so many talented people, and if we, like, work together and have good communication where we're all moving towards the same thing, which takes communication, and when things don't go so well, it's often a communication breakdown, but
Mhm.
it's way less of a burden. We joke,
Mhm.
we laugh a lot with each other, we play tricks on each other, but yet we're all working towards the same vision, same goal, and it's way more relieving, and I can go to bed with some peace in my heart because it's like, it's not all me, and that's why
Mhm.
I suffered a lot in my early adult life until probably the past 5 or 6 years that I felt
Mhm.
like, "This is all me." And
Yeah.
it's crippling pressure in this world,
Yeah.
whether it's a parent, I was talking to a friend that's struggling with their child, and they're at their wits' end. They don't know what to do, and they don't have the answers themselves, and it's really hard to have all the answers yourself. And when we talked, it's like, "Oh, I never thought about that." It's like,
Mhm.
so I think it's just realizing, like, I get so many great ideas from other people. So,
Mhm.
yeah, so I don't know if I answered it well, but
No,
it's
you
what's
did.
on my mind. So,
And I'm also hearing that having that vision and
yeah,
that knowing other people's gifts
yeah,
and then knowing how other people can plug in, recognizing that you can't do it all alone. We're not meant to do it all alone, but how you can work with other people and feel supported and that relaxing. Maybe it's relaxing into trust, but it's relaxing into a team to some degree and knowing that you're creating something together. There's power in that.
yeah, yeah.
Tremendous power in that. Yeah.
Yeah, and the vision, I mean, it's like, I think something I've recognized that's really challenging for us today in our culture is we don't have, like, that cultural story that we all buy in.
Mm,
Like,
mm,
when Bushmen told stories around the fire, with some of these other native cultures I have been around a lot, they have a pedagogy of stories they tell
mm, mhm.
that has their values embedded in it, has their code of conduct, has how they care for the land, all in these stories, and people hear those stories year after year after year, and it becomes the fiber of their being, whereas we have all these disagreements on the stories and the things that we want. We don't
Yeah.
have a aligned vision, I think makes it really hard for
Yeah.
us. So when I work with people, I try to just keep it on nature.
Mhm.
One of people I work with, she says, like, "Let nature do the work."
Mhm.
So, just kinda get people out there and let nature write people's minds,
Yeah,
you know?
creating the conditions.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, for connection and healing.
yeah, so,
So, looking at the vantage point of where you are now,
yeah,
you're working on creating this permanent home for the living or school, working in community, working as a
yeah.
team. What do you wish someone told you, Hub, 5 or 10 years ago about this work?
Think that it's not about the information,
Hmm.
you know?
Can you say more about that?
I think I've learned with mentoring people, like, when I first started teaching, I often was like, "I gotta teach them how to build shelter, and it's this way. This is how you."
Mhm.
It's like more stuff,
Mm.
information and less about the individual I was teaching,
Mhm.
and then I realized, like, if I build that relationship with that individual and hear them and they get a passion about nature on their own, the information follows.
Mhm.
It's like I look at my daughter who had a love for horses and still has a love for horses. We have 2 horses here. And
Mhm.
she knows so much about horses now, but didn't start with that.
Mhm.
With an awe of around the animal of horses and then riding, and then all of a sudden all this other stuff came in. So I think I was flipped upside down for a little while in my approach to teaching. Maybe
Mhm.
I was nervous, uncomfortable, not confident that when you are in those places, you tend to stick with information because it's safer,
Yeah.
and instead of taking the risk, like, is this going to work? Because following people's passion and building their curiosity is kind of uncharted path, so it doesn't have it A plus B equals C
Mhm.
every time. So it's a little more risky on a mentor's approach. But
Mhm.
over time, I've realized that's actually the fastest way to connection.
Yeah, beautiful.
That makes sense.
So
It's hard to do.
what's that?
I mean, it's a little bit harder to do at first, but it takes time and to just
Yeah. And so it almost sounds like it's creating the conditions for you've talked about relationship, but it's
yeah,
creating conditions for people to trust themselves and then for a spark to happen
yeah.
and then for nature to teach. Does that sound
Yeah, it's great, and I think as a mentor, like, it's because it's not if I remember, it's not about me, so it's like, if the conditions are right, they think they figured it all out on themselves.
Mhm.
Like, it's not like they will sometimes think a fool. I'm like, "Which way is this track moving? Is this like a dog?" And I'm like, "Dude, it's a deer, and it's going that way." And it's like
Mhm.
I'm okay to look dumb
Mhm.
because I want that kid to know,
Mhm.
figure it out. I'm like, "I wonder, like, is it walking?" And I'll ask this another because okay, they know it's a deer. That's information for me.
Mhm.
I know what they know, so it's like, is it walking? Like, I don't know. Like, well, how would we tell? You know? And then they have to engage with that a little bit. So I think, yeah, I mean, it's just a lot to it that's fun to do, but it's not about me looking good. It's about
Mhm.
them in the driver's seat. And if it's done right, their confidence goes up. They're like, yeah, I figured out how to make fire. They had no idea
Mhm.
all 6 tips I gave them on making fire. They wouldn't have gotten there without it.
Mhm.
But I don't
Mhm.
care. I want them to figure it out. Now they have it and make fire. And they can go into life knowing that skill. And then they start believing in themselves more. And I might
Mhm.
celebrate them in passing. Like, I might tell a story at night. It's like, oh, yeah. And then man, Eric, just popped out that coal like it was nothing. Like, and I go on with my story, like, that little moment of highlighting and kinda,
Mhm.
like, that made that kid's week. And I'm trying to pull them out, like, highlight them, like, they worked hard, celebrate it's almost like honoring them. And I
Yeah.
think honoring people in a genuine way is really crucial. There's a lot of token ways we do it that feels kinda empty, but to really be genuine about it, and
Yeah.
timing's everything. So, yeah.
In what way with the timing?
Sometimes I think, waiting, like, if I said, "Great job," after the fire, if that kid made the fire and got it, like, the bow drill's a lot of work if you don't know what you're doing.
Mhm.
To do it right then, it's like, "Oh, cool," but if you say it, like, a couple hours later or a day later in a different context in front of a group of people, it really like, they feel seen
Yeah.
and honored, and
Mhm.
they will, in a way, I mean, yeah, then it really has lands with a different impact.
Yeah. Very much
Like,
so.
similar, like, with, like, the Bushman people when we were talking about fire or something through an interpreter with them, and they disagreed with us on something, but they didn't mention it until the next day
Hmm.
because they said we're like, "Why didn't you just bring it up then?" They're just like, "'Cause you guys were very attached and charged. There was
Hmm.
heat," they said,
Mhm. Mhm.
"around our feelings around it, and we need to let that cool down
Uh-huh.
so you could actually hear what we were saying." If I did that in my relationships,
Right?
a lot would be different,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I
So
hear
it's
that cool down period is kind of essential, that reset and
so
pause.
hard to do, so
It
hard to
is hard to do. Yeah, that awareness.
but yeah, so
So, tell us a little bit, as we're preparing to wrap up,
yeah,
in a minute, I wanna ask how people can learn more about your work, but I wanna hear where you're going next, like
right,
yourself, and then just to welcome any other thoughts or reflections you wanna share.
right. Where am I going? So, I mean, it's kind of unknown. I'm kinda just like, yeah, I'm just kind of, in a way, along for the ride. I think I'm
Mhm.
really working hard at creating this permanent sanctuary for our school, and I'm trying to come at it from an approach of 100 years. Like, how do I shape the org without, yeah, for the next 100 years, like, what gets in
Mhm.
place? And I've been talking with some of my other native elders about, like, when a so and so leader of your community dies, how do you guys not really miss a beat? And they're like, well,
Mhm.
we're sad for sure, but we have the things in place to keep it strong. So that's
Mhm.
been in my design. Like, what is the pattern that does that well? Is
Yeah.
something I'm studying. I'm also really interested in mentoring the mentors
Mhm.
because I want that work to spread outside of just our school. And
Yeah.
ideally, I mean, I say 100 years, ideally in 100 years, they won't need nature connection schools.
Mhm.
it'll be out of business because it's happening everywhere.
Yeah.
Is my target is to put
Yeah.
ourselves out of business,
Mhm.
not because of bad business decisions, but because we did our job so well that
Yeah.
the Bushmen were like, "You have to teach your people about hazards like this and how to act around snakes." Then they thought, like, "No, that's what I teach you how to do." They thought that was insane. Like,
Yeah.
people don't know how to
Yeah.
act around snakes. I'm like, "Oh, no, not really."
Yeah.
They thought they were like, "You're Jim." They thought we were messing with them. So, I mean, I do need to do more things that bring me joy for my own time because I give a lot to my work and I need to get out. Like I went for a beautiful wander up in the mountains here off the trail and just kind of went wherever my gut guided me and found some amazing things. So I need to do more of that. I need to get out and play
Mhm.
on the rivers, spend more time with people I love. Way, who I mentioned earlier, I asked him, "Did you have any regrets in life?" And he said, "No." And then a minute later, he's like, "Actually, I regret not spending more time with my spiritual friends. The
Mm.
friends mean a lot to me.
Yeah.
If I could do it over again, I'd have spent more time with them because I got busy,
Yeah.
and those are the things that feed you." Well, I think about that a lot, and it's just finding more ways to bring this work to the world, I think. I just wanna keep
Yeah.
out and being in nature and being with good people and
Mhm.
finding other people and finding ways to help us collaborate more to bring more power. Because I think there's a lot of good things that can happen in this
Yeah,
world.
absolutely. And I'm so glad that you also talked about what brings you joy.
Yeah,
It gives us the fuel to keep doing the work.
yeah,
And it is the connections, it's the time together, it's the being together that, you hear time and time again, that's what matters at the end of
yeah,
a life well lived. So I love
yeah,
that you're
yeah.
bringing that up now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't wanna just get at the end and be like, "Wow, I did all these things that looks on the outside successful, but on the inside, I wasn't having that much fun."
Yeah.
That's not the story I wanna leave.
Yeah.
So
100%.
so
100%.
easy to forget. So, yeah.
Yeah. So Hub, tell us how we can learn more about
Right.
your work. And I
Um,
know you've published some stuff too. So tell us about that.
our website is it's Living Earth School, livingearthva.org.
We'll include.
That has all the different programs we offer.
Mm,
That's one great way to get hold of us. We're on those different social media platforms. And then I did write a book called Living Nature Connected with a local artist, Mir Dene, who
mhm.
did the art for it. And it's available on Amazon. It's also some stores in Charlottesville sell it as well, like High Tour.
Yeah.
And it's a book about when during COVID, people were trapped. So I started doing a series on how to go out and sit in nature and like from an angle of like when I'd go out, I'd come back in, my mentors would ask me questions.
Mhm.
It was kind of like, all right, so you don't have the mentor sitting next to you. What do you
Mhm.
do? So here are the
Yeah.
questions that I was typically asked, the things they would like, pay attention to this, do this, can you draw me a map? And so I have a book of that I made of like 30 different exercises you
Mm.
can do to go out and sit and have a sitting practice to learn how to observe and see, just become a part of nature and become more attuned with it. So
Yeah.
different things
Beautiful.
I've done, all these in my programs, and I chose the ones that had the greatest impact on
Yeah.
people.
That's
So
awesome. So we'll include links to that.
yeah,
So beautiful. Well, I'm so excited to hear about where the sanctuary goes for the Living Earth School
yeah,
and the good work that you're doing and the team of people that you're working with are
yeah.
doing and continuing community. So thanks for such a beautiful conversation, Hub. Really appreciate it
Yeah.
today.
Appreciate spending taking the time and always love chatting with you. So
Yeah, me as well. All right, Hub. Thanks again.
thank you.